Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anna's Analysis. Today, we'll be talking about Google. In this video, we'll mainly discuss Google's development history. We'll cover Google's business structure, profit model, financial data, and other related topics in a later video or two. Now, let's get started. Google's journey is a story of going from a garage to the stars. The story begins in 1995. I wonder if any of you listeners remember the internet in 1995. At that time, there were fewer than 40 million internet users worldwide, mainly concentrated in the United States, Japan, Germany, Canada, and the United Kingdom. In that year, Netscape launched the Navigator browser and completely dominated the web browser market. Microsoft released Windows 95, which introduced the Start menu and taskbar, revolutionizing how ordinary people use computers. Returning to our protagonist, Larry Page was considering pursuing graduate studies at Stanford University, and Sergey Brin, a student there, was assigned to show him around the campus. In 1996, Page began his PhD in computer science at Stanford, specializing in linked structures. The two became close friends. The two of them often discussed, could we use citation relationships to judge the value of a web page, just like in academic papers? In the mid to late 1990s, Yahoo was the undisputed global internet leader. Initially, Yahoo was more like a web directory and navigation service, with web content manually organized and categorized. Its search model relied heavily on keyword matching, using manual categorization and the placement of keywords on the page to determine relevance. Larry and Sergey believed that if many websites linked to you, it meant you were more important. Thus, Backrub was born. It assessed authority based on the links between web pages, achieving automated and accurate ranking. With the explosive growth of the internet, human editors couldn't keep up with the pace of information updates, resulting in Yahoo search results being far less timely and comprehensive than Google's. But that's another story. In 1997, they renamed the engine Google, a misspelling of the mathematical term Google, which means 1 followed by 100 zeros. This aptly reflects Larry and Sergey's mission: to organize the world's information, make it accessible to the public, and make it accessible to everyone. In the following years, Google not only attracted the attention of academia, but also drew the eye of Silicon Valley investors. In 1998, a moment that changed the history of the internet occurred. Andy Bettelsheim, co-founder of Solar Microsystems, wrote a check on the spot after seeing their demonstration. $100,000, payable to Google Inc. Here's the problem. The company hasn't been registered yet. Thus, Google was forced to be established. Using the investment, the newly formed team moved their office from their dorm room to their first office, a legendary location, Susan Wojcicki's garage. However, after receiving the investment, Page and Brin didn't work at full speed. Instead, they went to Burning Man in August 1998, an unconventional carnival. To show that they were on vacation, Brin put a Burning Man icon on the website. This was the first Google Doodle. In the following years, Google received $250,000 in angel investment from renowned investor Jeff Bezos and $25 million in investment from Sequoia Capital and Kleiner Perkins Caulfield and Byers. By 1999, Google had grown to 8 employees and moved its offices to a building in Palo Alto. As search engines gained popularity, many advertisers requested to place ads on Google's web pages, but the two founders refused. They believed that advertising was a wrong and inappropriate form for search engines because it would distort the search engine's essence if they started selling ad space. However, as the pressure to generate revenue increased, Page and Brin's attitudes toward advertising began to change. In early 2000, Google held a meeting to determine the company's values, and it was at this meeting that the concept of "don't be evil" was proposed. That is, always do the right thing and be ethical. In October 2000, Google officially launched Google AdWords, providing advertisers with a way to promote their products and services within Google. In 2001, Page and Brin hired Eric Schmidt to run Google. At the time, Google was only a few years old, but was growing rapidly and needed guidance. Perhaps, as Page said in an interview that year, Google needed adult supervision. Schmidt has extensive management experience, having served as Chief Technology Officer of Sun Microsystems and CEO of Novell before joining Google. He joined Google's board as chairman in March 2001 and became CEO in August of the same year. He served as Google's CEO for 10 years, orchestrating Google's initial public offering in 2004, the acquisition of YouTube, and the launch of products such as Gmail. In 2011, Schmidt handed over the CEO position to Page, becoming executive chairman. He announced this change in a somewhat playful tweet. Google no longer needs daily adult supervision. In 2003, Google acquired Applied Semantics and Sprinks, a subsidiary of media company Primedia. These acquisitions led to the development of AdSense, a targeted advertising business for Google sites. AdSense is an extremely important advertising business for Google and one of the core pillars of the Google empire's growth. If you run a blog or website, you can join AdSense to display Google ads on your pages. How does it work? AdSense automatically analyzes your page content. For example, if your page is about travel guides, it will automatically display ads for hotel bookings or flight discounts. When readers click on these ads, the advertisers pay Google, and Google shares a portion of that revenue with the website owner. On August 19, 2004, Google successfully went public on NASDAQ. Google also entered a horizontal expansion mode. 2004. The beta version of Gmail made a stunning debut. At the time, people's email accounts only had a few megabytes of storage space, but Google provided 1 gigabyte directly. In the same year, it acquired Where2 and Keyhole and launched Google Maps and Google Earth in 2005. In August 2005, Google officially acquired Android Inc. When Apple released the iPhone in 2007, Google quickly adjusted its strategy, making Android an open-source system. In April 2006, Google officially entered the Chinese market and announced that its global Chinese name would be Google. In the same year, it acquired YouTube for $1.65 billion. At the time, it was ridiculed as a ripoff, but today, YouTube has become the world's largest video search engine and a source of cultural inspiration.
In February 2007, Google acquired Adscape, a company specializing in game advertising, which later became a major part of Google's AdSense advertising business. In June of the same year, Google acquired Peakstream, a company specializing in developing graphics card-based supercomputer solutions. This acquisition is considered one of the seeds of Google's path to developing its own chips. In July, they acquired Postini, a company whose main business was communication security. The official version of Gmail, which was released 2 years later, was developed and improved based on this acquisition. The previous versions were all beta versions. In March 2008, Google announced its successful acquisition of DoubleClick, a leading online advertising service provider. DoubleClick didn't produce content. Instead, it provided a technology platform to help advertisers place ads and help website owners manage their ad placements. It had a large pool of enterprise clients and high-end publishers. Before the acquisition, Google's strength lay in text search advertising, while DoubleClick's strength lay in display advertising, the various attractive images and banner ads you see on web pages. DoubleClick's technology made ad targeting extremely precise, allowing real-time tracking of what users viewed and clicked. From then on, Google became the undisputed leader in the online advertising industry. Chrome was born in September 2008. Then CEO Eric Schmidt initially opposed developing a browser, believing Google wasn't strong enough to challenge Microsoft. However, founders Page and Brin hired developers from Firefox and secretly developed a prototype, ultimately persuading Schmidt. Before Chrome, Internet Explorer dominated the market, but was slow to update. Chrome's minimalist and fast design forced all browser vendors, including Microsoft, to accelerate technological innovation. Google's true goal was to make the browser an operating system. Only when the browser is fast and stable enough will users be willing to write documents, watch videos, and send emails in the browser, instead of downloading desktop software. The Chrome browser is the gateway for users to the internet. Without the success of Chrome, many of Google's later cloud services might not be running as smoothly as they do today. In late September of the following year, HTC released the world's first Android phone, a truly historic moment. HTC would then enjoy a period of dominance in the smartphone market, thanks to its first-mover advantage. Of course, the biggest winner was Google, the company behind Android. In November 2009, Google preempted Apple by announcing its acquisition of mobile advertising company AdMob for $750 million, which was completed the following year. This allowed Google to extend its dominant position in the internet search market into the wireless device sector, becoming the largest mobile advertising company. In March 2010, Google announced the closure of its search service in mainland China, relocating it to Hong Kong. The reasons cited were related to censorship and cybersecurity regulations in mainland China. In July of the same year, it announced the acquisition of flight information software company ITA Software, a transaction completed the following year, resulting in Google Flights. In August 2011, Google announced that it would acquire Motorola Mobility for $12.5 billion. Why would Google spend so much money to buy Motorola Mobility, which was already declining at the time? Around 2011, the smartphone market was at the height of its patent wars. Apple and Microsoft, leveraging decades of accumulated communication patents, launched a fierce legal offensive against the rapidly rising Android camp. As a software company, Google has a very weak foundation in hardware and underlying communication patents. If it doesn't want Android phone manufacturers to be dragged down by lawsuits, Google must have its own arsenal. Motorola, the inventor of the mobile phone, owns 17,000 patents and over 7,500 pending patents. These patents cover core standards for 2G, 3G, and even 4G. Having these patents means that when Apple sues Google, Google can counterattack using Motorola's patents, thus achieving cross-licensing and maintaining a balance of terror. In 2014, Google sold Motorola's hardware business and brand to Lenovo for $2.91 billion, but retained the vast majority of its core patents. Although Motorola was sold, Google absorbed a significant amount of hardware talent through this integration, laying the groundwork for the later creation of the Pixel series phones and the acquisition of HTC's mobile phone business. In 2013, Google acquired the Israeli mapping service company Waze for $1.3 billion, beating Apple and Facebook to the punch. This company is able to use GPS information from mobile devices to intelligently plan driving routes. DeepMind, which later became a very famous artificial intelligence company. In October of the same year, it also acquired Dark Blue Labs, a company mainly engaged in data architecture and algorithm development, which was directly incorporated into DeepMind after the acquisition. In the same year, Google also acquired Nest, a smart thermostat manufacturer. This acquisition was significant far beyond simply selling thermostats. Before acquiring Nest, Google primarily existed on your screen. Through Nest, Google successfully penetrated the physical home space of users. Google hopes to establish a smart home standard similar to Android through smoke detectors, cameras, and locks in the home to interconnect. Nest is the perfect testing ground for artificial intelligence. How to automatically predict user needs through sensor data is an excellent application case of Google's AI technology. Currently, in the smart home market, Amazon Alexa holds approximately 28% of the market share, firmly holding the top position. Google Nest follows closely behind with approximately 23%, ranking second globally. Compared to Alexa, Google Nest integrates Gemini AI, which has significant advantages in semantic understanding, multi-turn dialogue, and accuracy in answering complex questions. As Google's business has become increasingly complex, in addition to its core search and advertising, it has ventured into a large number of cutting-edge projects, such as autonomous driving, life sciences, and high-speed fiber optics, which are not profitable in the short term. In August 2015, Google underwent a major corporate restructuring. By creating a new parent company called Alphabet, it divided its business into two main camps. The core Google businesses include Search, Android, YouTube, Google Maps, advertising, and the App Store. Other independent projects include Google X, Nest, Fiber, Calico, and investment funds. In late 2015, AlphaGo, the Go-playing artificial intelligence program developed by DeepMind, a subsidiary of Google, was officially released. The following March, it battled world champion Lee Sedol for 5 games, ultimately winning 4-1. A year later, it defeated another world champion, KJ, 3-0. In September 2016, Google announced its acquisition of Apigee, an API management software provider. What is an API? An API acts as a translator or bridge between software applications. For example, when you order takeout using a mobile app and check the delivery location on a map, you are exchanging data through an API. Apigee provides a platform that helps businesses securely publish, manage, monitor, and analyze these APIs and their data traffic. This acquisition marks a pivotal moment in the history of Google Cloud.
In September 2017, Google announced its acquisition of HTC's Pixel phone assets, marking Google's formal entry into the smart terminal business. In May 2019, Huawei began to suffer the first round of U.S. sanctions, and Google was subsequently forced to stop licensing GMS to new Huawei phones. GMS includes Maps, YouTube, Gmail, and the Google Play App Store. This meant that while Huawei phones could continue to use the open-source Android operating system, they could not pre-install Google's App Store and services. For overseas users who heavily rely on the Google ecosystem, this was practically a death sentence for their phones. To replace Google's GMS, Huawei was forced to launch its own mobile service system. Originally a Google partner, Huawei had to build its own ecosystem of maps, payments, and app stores, directly competing with Google at the service level. To completely break free from dependence on US technology, Huawei accelerated the commercialization of its Harmony OS system. This marked Huawei's transformation from a core member of Android to a challenger with an independent operating system. Google's relationship with Huawei has been forced to shift from mutually beneficial ecosystem partners to competitors at the ecosystem level.
In 2020, Google completed its acquisition of Fitbit, the first publicly traded wearable device manufacturer. Fitbit's wearable devices and Meta's products differ fundamentally in terms of product logic, core technology, and the future scenarios they target. Simply put, Fitbit focuses on your body data, while Meta focuses on your visual interaction. Google Fitbit, a recorder for health and fitness tracking. The products are mainly smartwatches and smart bracelets. Its core functionality focuses on physiological monitoring, such as heart rate, sleep quality, stress management, electrocardiogram, and tracking of various exercise modes. Its goal is to help you better understand your body's condition. Meta primarily develops VR headsets and smart glasses, which we introduced in episode 7, so we won't go into detail here. In 2022, Google acquired Mandiant, a leader in cybersecurity, for $5.4 billion, the second largest acquisition in Google's history after Motorola. This was of extraordinary significance to Google Cloud. Mandiant is renowned for handling extremely complex state-sponsored cyber attacks. Whenever large global corporations or government agencies suffer severe hacking intrusions, Mandiant is typically the first company called upon to put out the fire and solve the case. Mandiant possesses the world's most comprehensive database of hacker groups.
They not only know what viruses the hackers used, but can even trace the attackers' identities, their countries of origin, and their motives. The addition of Mandiant has solidified Google Cloud's position as a top-tier global cloud service provider.
After 2022, Google entered an extremely turbulent and transformative period. After OpenAI released ChatGPT in late 2022, Google was alarmed. This posed the biggest threat to Google's search empire since its inception. In early 2023, Google urgently launched the conversational AI Bard, and in late 2023, Google released its most powerful multimodal large model, Gemini, which claimed to surpass GPT-4 in multiple test metrics. I wonder which large model viewers prefer. I usually use Gemini more often because I can ask it any time I think of a question while browsing the web. It can provide a more in-depth explanation based on the web page context, and it's more convenient. If I go to ChatGPT, I have to describe the background of the question again, which is very troublesome. 12,000 employees worldwide. This was the largest layoff in Google's history. In 2024, Google suffered a major blow in an antitrust court case. A U.S. federal judge ruled that Google was a monopolist, finding that its practice of paying huge sums to companies like Apple to maintain its dominant position in search violated antitrust laws. While preliminary legal conclusions have been reached regarding sanctions, their final implementation and enforcement remain under negotiation. In 2024, Google also reached its peak. Key figures at Google DeepMind, including CEO Demis Hassabis and researcher Jampareh Jemper, were awarded the Nobel Prizes in Physics and Chemistry, respectively, for their contributions to areas such as AI-based protein structure prediction. This is extremely rare in the history of science and technology, demonstrating Google's dominance in basic science.
Finally, looking back at Google's rise, from the PageRank algorithm in a Stanford garage to a global tech giant spanning search, mobile, cloud, and AI, Google's 30 years are a history of aggressive digital land grabbing. Through brilliant acquisitions like Android and YouTube, it transitioned from a tool to an ecosystem. And in the restructuring of Alphabet, it demonstrated its ambition to reach for the stars. Although the external turmoil of cutting off Huawei's GMS supply and the antitrust conviction in 2024 have cast a shadow of uncertainty over its future, Google still stands at the forefront of the AI era, with its self-developed TPU chip and Gemini large-scale model. Just as its name suggests, Google itself has become a verb, recording humanity's endless desire for exploration and its ultimate pursuit of information order. Okay, that's all for today's video. If you found it helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. After reviewing its history of territorial expansion, the next installment will delve into the empire's core ledger. Who is supporting the empire, and who is losing money? In 2026, what track is Google betting on? See you next time.